Hello YouTube, what's up? This is Taz Olson here, and today we are going to be creating this effect. This is like a three-dimensional room full of lasers and all kinds of awesome stuff, so yeah, let's look at this. Alright, so as you can see here, we have lasers in rooms, smoke coming out of the ground, kind of. We got 3D text, and as you can also tell by all these red boxes, we have null objects everywhere that control everything, because null objects are amazing. So, basically, let's get over what we are basically going to be using. That is third-party for After Effects. We are going to be using Trapcode Particular to make the smoke. However, there are multiple other methods of making smoke. There are so many within After Effects, but I find Particular to be my personal favorite. And we also have, we are going to be using Video Copilot's Element 3D. It's an amazing plugin. It allows you to put 3D objects into a scene, such as this text. However, if you don't want to, the text is the only thing that uses the Element 3D, so it could quite easily be done without that. And we're going to be using Trapcode Form to make our lasers, because it makes a very nice laser, as you can see here. So yeah, that's what we're going to be using. It's all like this 3D room. Let's take a quick look at this scene and then we'll get started. So this is basically what the scene looks like. It's a little slow because, well, it takes a lot to load. There's a lot of stuff going on. It's become a quite large file. Or you know what? Let's just shut off the particular layer quickly, and the motion blur. That would be also something that adds to it. And so now we can see we've got all these 3D lasers. They go around, and as the camera moves a bit closer to them, it just turned black there because it went through a wall. As you get closer to them and as they overlap, they tend to turn into this great little, this white, so it's got like a higher level of brightness. Let's actually check that. Yeah, it's okay. It's not quite brighter than white, but it's along the same idea of, I believe it's additive lighting. So it's very neat. It's also got this this glow and a whole bunch of really cool stuff. So let's get started. I'm going to start off my composition. I'm going to have it about 3 seconds. 3 seconds is easily enough for what we want to do. I don't know why I used more than that in the previous one. Now we are going to take this the smoke loop. Now this is something that I got from Video Copilot. I believe it was part of the project file on the Portal tutorial. I can link you to that. And I don't know. Also, let me know if you want me to start including project files, including all the files of the project I do in each tutorial, because I think that would actually be a really easy way to get people the information to people. It makes things a lot easier. They get the files they need. Anyway, I think I might even just start doing that without requests. Anyway, so now I'm going to take this, I'm going to pre-compose it and leave all attributes, seeing as it is not the same as our main composition. And make sure our main composition is actually 1920 by 1080, or whatever your desired resolution is, but I want to have 1080p HD, even though I can be editing in full now. So basically what we have here is this loop that Andrew Kramer has created for us that is basically just smoke that moves around and doesn't actually loop, but he faded it in. So anyway, we are now going to pre-compose this once again, seeing as I previously was looking at the Leave all attributes. Yeah, we're going to leave all attributes. I was previously looking at the smoke loop in the scene in my previous version, and I realized it moves a little too fast for what I want. I want it to be sort of moving a little bit slower. So we are going to go into that composition. We're going to hit the toggle switches mode, so it brings up these little boxes here. Underneath this frame blend film strip, we're going to click it twice so it has this straight solid line here. And that's going to basically allow it to use pixel motion. So yeah, let's go into this one. We are now going to duplicate this. On the bottom layer, we're going to go to Luma Matte, or Invert, Luma Matte, sorry. Keep forgetting when they turn this off. I always forget about those mats, which one's which. Anyway, so now we have that, and seeing as it is pre-composed, we can now edit however we wish for it to be edited. We can like color correct it and whatever. Now let's go into the composition settings. I'm going to I'm going to take both of these, select them both, go to time stretch, and I find about 150% time stretch, meaning yeah, I find that does best, and it also will tell me the new duration, so I need it to be 3 seconds 3 seconds and 14 frames, which brings me to the conclusion I don't even need to loop it, but I will just for the sake of it, because if I want to make my composition longer, yeah, whatever. Anyway, now we can stretch that to the full length of it. Now we can start building our three-dimensional our three-dimensional room. And it's got 3 walls. I actually have a 4th wall, but I broke it because I didn't really like the 4th wall being there. So yeah, broke the 4th wall. Not really even that funny. So what I'm going to be using, where is it? This wall texture right here. And once again, we're going to pre-compose this, leave all attributes, so now we can edit all 4 walls at once if we wish to, seeing as they will all be in a separate composition. And we also have the ability to edit them individually at the same time, so that's interesting. And seeing as at the bottom here I notice there's sort of a cobblestone floor, that is why I used, a cobblestone floor in the original project. I actually had a different idea for it originally, but I realized I need this cobblestone floor. Actually, I need that in the main composition. I apologize. So we have this, once again, pre-compose it, because pre-composing is just nice. So now I'm going to turn off my smoke loop and my cobblestone texture. I'm going to go to the top view. I'm going to turn my walls all to 3D. I'm going to duplicate it by hitting Control D until I have 4 copies of it, seeing as I have 4 walls. And I'm also going to look up here and notice that my my wall happens to be 3000 by 1800. Now I can stretch this if I want, but I'm perfectly fine with the way it is. So I'm going to go to all of them. I'm going to open up the position values by hitting P, and by hitting Shift at the same time and hitting R, I'm going to bring up the rotation and orientation values. So now I want to start moving these around. So I'm going to start by going to the Y rotation on the first one, changing it to 90 degrees, and moving the position over. It's already at 960, which is half of our composition, so it's right in the center. We're going to add half of our wall, so it's going to be 1500, which is half of 3000, and we have it go right to the end. Now we are just going to do the exact opposite on here. So we're going to go negative 90 degrees on this, and our position is going to be this minus 1500, and as you can see, it snaps right to the wall there. For our next two, we're not going to be messing with rotation at all because we don't have a need to. But our position, we wish to bring back to 1500 on one and negative 1500 on the other, on the Z position. So now, if we go to active camera, layer, new camera, and we can add any camera here. I tend to like the 50mm preset, not because it's the best camera by any means. I just like how it is the built-in one, like the standard for After Effects, which just makes it nice. So now, as we can see, we have this 3D room. So we can now bring in our cobblestone texture, our cobblestone flooring. Now, seeing as this is 1800 high, I can go to my position, and I can add, I believe, 900 to that, which will be half of that. And my cobblestone texture will now be right about on the floor. Open the orientation value, go to the X, and go to 90. Actually, no, I'd rather have it negative 90, so it's just easier to... So I have that blue arrow pointing up. It's not necessary, it just makes things much easier to move around later. It's nice to have it facing towards the room, in my opinion. Now I'm going to scale this up. You can also, if you want to keep the texture at, you know, these smaller rocks, you can go to the Stylize under motion tile. You can add this to your layer, go to output width, and just bump this all up, and it will, seeing as I have a tileable texture, it just goes endlessly in size. But if you do not happen to have a tileable texture, yet you still want to keep the size, hitting mirror edges sort of gives a slight illusion of tileable textures by mirroring what was directly at it, so it doesn't have a ugly break line. However, tileable textures do tend to be the best. However, I noticed that these rocks actually look rather large on my walls, so I also could, you know, I think about it, just cut the bottoms of these walls off, which would also make sense to cut the top of these ridiculous brick buildings that are just in the corner of the wall. But seeing as I'm not going to see the tops of the walls, I'm not really going to care, and I'm going to match my stones roughly to the scene. I'm going to scale it up till it looks about right. That looks about right there. Looks good enough. So let's tidy up our workspace by closing some of these down. Really looking forward to what it appears that After Effects is going to be doing soon. Is going to be adding like layer, what do you call it? They had layer folders, I believe they were looking at putting in, which will be absolutely fantastic. It'll really help organize things, especially for people like me who are absolutely horrible at organizing, so that will be nice. Okay, so next we shall start creating our laser. Now, layer, new solid, which is pretty much what anyone does when they're generating elements. Yeah, we can create a new solid. I am going to choose black. I'm also then going to create another layer, new solid. I'm going to make this one white, and I'm going to call it matte. So now I'm going to pre-compose our matte, and I'm going to go into my black solid. I'm going to call this laser. No, you know what? Let's spell with a Z. Because for some reason I always want to spell laser with a Z. It sounds like a laser. Zerg. Alright, so now let's go into our matte. Let's go to transition. And we should have a linear wipe somewhere in here. Linear wipe, here we go. Let's change this to 50%. And and that seems about right. So as you notice, basically what we have is half of the screen black, half of it white. Don't worry, it's going to make sense soon enough. So now we can close out this and close our matte. We can now shut off this matte layer, go to our laser layer, which currently does not have a laser, but we can create one in a few seconds. Let's go to trap code form. So as I mentioned before, this is going to be using trap code form. And just so we can see, let's just change this all to 0. Let's reset our camera so it just gives us a straight on look. And back to our laser base form, I'm going to change this to box strings just because it gives straight lines much easier. I find that it's just what I prefer. I don't really see any reason to be using grid, however, if you want to have it reacting to stuff, it looks cooler with a grid. Just worth noting there. Now, as we can see, we have a three-dimensional laser type substance. However, at least I have not found, I am not exactly the most informed person on trapcode form, but I cannot find a good way to control this. Especially seeing as I want to have it be able to control from a certain point. I do not want to be controlling it from the middle, which is all I seem to be able to do, even if I offset the center. So, I decided I want to be able to do something else. First I'm going to extend this quite a bit, and now I'm going to go down to the layer maps, color and alpha, set this to our matte, A to A, and our map over X and Z. And now as we can see, we are left with just half of our laser, and which allows us to very easily create a null and start parenting everything to our null. Now, so what properties we wish to start parenting to the null? Well, first we should open up this in 3D space. Yeah, actually, let's just go into our matte and change the wipe angle to 270 or -90. Now we are going to go into our laser. There we go. Now it's fixed. We're going to go find our X rotation, our Y rotation, and our Z rotation. We're going to alt-click on all three of them. Brings it up in this. And what else should we be putting in? We should also get our center XY and our center Z. Now we can bring up our position and rotation properties with by hitting P and R. So now we can start parenting things, which will be nice. So for our center X and Y, I'm just going to parent this to the position, seeing as it's only going to be taking the first two values. It doesn't really matter if there is the fact that this is actually a three-dimensional thing or not. Then I'm going to take the center Z, and I'm going to parent this to our Z position. So it's the position 2 out of my X rotation. I'm going to parent to, now I can parent it to my orientation X, or I could parent it to my X rotation. So I'm going to just parent it to my orientation X this time. In the original one I actually parented it to both, and I guess I could show you how to do that. So basically this is parented to our orientation. Now if we want it to be able to be controlled by our X, Y, and Z rotation and our orientation, I can just add a little plus there and then parent it also to my X rotation. Now if I grab this, I am capable of controlling, actually I guess X rotation is a bad example because it's just turning a circle around. Parenting the X rotation doesn't even really matter. but I can parent the Y rotation, and that will actually make a difference. And from there we can go also parent it to the Y rotation. Now if we select this, we can change it by orientation. If you're doing it in here, right on the screen, it uses the orientation. Now if we adjust this, as you can see, we can operate it by both of them. However, I don't really want to keep parenting it to both because I'm not really going to use it. So I'm just going to be using the Z position. I'm not going to be working with the orientation. However, you can feel free to do that all you wish. Who knows what possible reasons you have for creating a room full of lasers that may or may not have the capability of melting anything they touch. Which kind of says a lot, seeing as they are touching the walls. Alright, so next step, let's go back into our laser settings and start adjusting the particle. We can bump up the size a bit by increasing that. Obviously the size under particle. We don't really have a reason to be changing our particle type. We can change the opacity a little bit. Sometimes it's nice to be able to see through it a little bit, so I'll put it at 70, and our color, for a laser it's nice to have a red. I find that if you don't use anything but a full color, it likes to start getting a little bit of a white center, which actually gives more of a laser type look, kind of like how they have in Star Wars. I think this time I'll actually use a blue laser. Nice light blue, just so it's different than last time. Transfer mode is already set to add. Let's use about that color. That's a perfectly good color. Now basically this is the basics of our laser. Although if we go into shading, turn this on, we also want to change this to none. This helps once we add our light in, which I used a point light of this sort of yucky green type color, which allowed me to turn the room green. And I had it about a intensity of 110%. Around there works. And as you can see, it starts affecting our laser. And if I change this to a bright red, it would actually start affecting it that way. Don't want to do that, but yeah, I had a point light. Another perfectly fine option would be an ambient light, or any of the lights work fine. It depends on how you wish to use it. So let's open up all of our 3D layers, and it's black still because we're looking through a wall. Now we are in 3D space in our lovely room. Let's move this light a little more to the center of the scene. Now I'm going to take this wall, because I don't like it. I'm going to say turn off. Now I'm going to be able to look into the room from a wider angle, and it's just nicer to be able to work with. Now, as we can clearly see, we need to make the size of our laser significantly larger. I find around 3000 for this particular, seeing as the walls are about 3000, it tends to work the best. However, we're going to be moving it at angles, so exact numbers are a little difficult, but you want it around the right length. Actually, we want it to be much longer than that. So, actually, I think we should make that size quite a bit bigger too. Yeah, something like that. Make it nice and large. Let's make a nice large laser. Our null. We can move, and basically we can now start moving around our null want it to be at about the wall. Specifics don't really matter. However, if it goes beyond the distance of the wall, it will show up. Like, it will keep repeating forever, so you don't want it to be going too far. Like that. So I now have a laser within my room. Next, we are going to start creating our smoke particles. So for this, I'm going to open another solid. I'm going to make this one black, because, I don't know, you can make solids whatever color you want. Red, blue, green, white, it's up to you. Basically, it doesn't really matter because you're generating stuff with it. We are now going to, seeing as I want text, I'm going to be opening up a new text layer by using the text tool, typing in Taz Olson, or you could type in whatever you want, really. I'm going to shut that layer off, go into my black solid, open up Element. This is my tutorial. Oh, we're almost at 30 minutes. This is getting into a long tutorial once again. Alright, so we are going to turn our custom layers, custom text and masks, select our text layer, go into scene setup. From here we can do some neat stuff by hitting extrude, and all of a sudden we have our text in 3D space. It has become extruded out, which means there's more than just a flat image there. We're going to start creating a bevel, so I want to have, go to our extrusion model, and I want to create 2 bevels. The first one, I want to extrude a bit more. I don't want to be extruding the edges. Actually, I want to extrude that. I want to change its diffuse color to a bit of a gray, and you'll notice, seeing as we have 2, this right here is becoming compromised, but that's going to be okay because we're now going to go into that one, change the bevel size on this one so it's nice and big. Let's change the bevel curve down to about 0, make it a nice sharp edge. Let's bump up the extrusion a bit too. Let's go right up. I'm going to make this, as soon as we have a green room, I'm going to make it like sort of a ugly greenish again. I think I want this gray to be lighter. And now we're going to go into the bump maps. And we're going to load a texture. I'm going to go into my materials, concrete maps, which I believe is part of the Pro Shaders thing, but you can get them from wherever. And if you have a texture you want to use something like Crazy Bump. It works very well. So I'm going to grab one of these normal maps for my bump, and as we can see on our gray, it's got this lovely little texture. I'm going to do the same on this one. Go to our bump map, open up one of our concrete maps. Let's get a different one, number 5. And once again we have our crazy little bump map here, and it looks pretty good to me right now. That's about all I really want for within it. Now let's go into Ambient Occlusion. Let's turn this on because that's like shadows within shadows. Actually, first, just so you can see it, let's go to create group null under group 1, seeing as that is where our model is. Let's create it. Now we have a null which we can move the entire text with, our entire model. So now I'm going to move this back quite a bit in 3D space. go back. I want it to be somewhat near the floor. So I'm going to go down so I can see the floor. I'm going to drop this down. Open up scale properties with S of our null, and seeing as that is also parented to our object, we can just scale this up and it will size up our text as well, which is amazing. Just really a good way to start working with things. Now let's turn on Ambient Occlusion. So you can see it's sort of like shadows within shadows, or shadows within our object. It's a neat thing. Just adds that extra little level of blending. You know, the things that no one notices, but really matter. Now I'm going to take these 3 layers, and I'm going to move them to just above our walls. So I can always see my text, but my layers, seeing as I have them, they're not seen as in the same 3-dimensional space. I just want them to be seen over top. Or if you want a laser behind your text, just put it underneath. Put the laser layer underneath your text layer, or underneath your element layer. So now I'm going to create a glow. Stylize glow, I find, works pretty well. I believe star glow also works fairly well. I'm going to bump up the bump up the radius. I actually really like that one. I like that better than the glow in the red. I think we could start using some more particles in this, but seeing as it's starting to look little bumps everywhere. String settings. Ooh, that looks pretty cool actually, but that's not what I'm looking for. Never mind. Let's not get into that. Alright, so we are now going to start moving our lasers around to the way that we wish them to be. We can also quite easily keyframe them so that they will like rotate or move or however we wish. I believe this is about what I'm looking for. Let's move it over here. Now we can duplicate the 2 of these layers. So we have a second set. Open up U. Let's rename this into Null 4, I guess, since this one is Null 3. Our second laser we are going to rename... We're going to change all the properties to Null 4. So if you use the previous option for all your rotation values, you now have like almost twice as much retexting to do, which is kind of the reason why I didn't do it this time, because last time I did like 8 lasers and it took a while. It was more work than I wanted, seeing as I didn't even use my rotations. I just use my orientation basically. So that's set to Null 4. Oh, center XY. Let's just fix this up. Change one of our rotations. Alright, so now this should work. Oh, I have it set to the rotations. Genius. There we go. So now we are able to start moving our new null around and get our laser in a separate position. Now, you literally have, well, I guess not quite, but we have an absolutely insane amount of possibilities we are now able to be exploring with just positions of these lasers. You can have them moving around in a line, or really doing whatever you want them to do. You know, we could have this go all the way back here and sort of scale along this wall, checking for bad guys. If it's a security laser, who knows what it's for. You're the creepy mastermind, and I entirely forgot the fact that we were supposed to be creating our particles. So yeah, let's get to that. Let's go to solid. Let's call this layer smoke particles. Yeah, let's create a new solid. I can't believe I entirely forgot that. Anyway, let's go to trap code particular. We already created a particle, so basically what we want to do, we want to go into particle type sprite. We're going to set the layer to that smoke loop layer that we had a long time ago. I'm pretty sure you could probably also find all kinds of other smoke loops all over the internet, or you could create it yourself. Let's go to rotation. We want orient to motion to remain off. We want the random rotation to be 100. So this way it has the ability to rotate entirely. So every time one is spawned, every time one is spawned, we want it to be a certain amount of a completely random rotation value. So we are also going to change the velocity to 0, the velocity random to 0. We're going to change the emitter type to box, seeing as we have a 3000 by 3000 by 3000 by 1800 by 3000 box currently. I'm going to change the emitter size X to 3000 by 1800 by 3000. Now we should have a box that entirely covers our scene. Now if I move forward a little bit, bump up the particles per second, and let's also bump up the size of said particles. We want them quite large, actually. We also want the opacity to be down. Put this at about 70. The opacity random at about 80. Just so we get some good variation in there. Bump this size, not the particles amount up. Bump that down a little more. Keep bumping the size up. I want them quite large, so they mesh a lot better. Yeah, that's getting nice. Now basically I went to a random point in time. When I move this, I am now capable of stopping them, however. Unlike form, it doesn't have particles that just exist forever, and they don't keep spawning or despawning. It's annoying, so I'm going to change the particles per second. I also make sure I have the time sampling, I guess would be a good idea to start at birth and loop. So now I have this many, I have my particles per second stopwatch clicked. I hit page down to go to the next frame, and then I change this value to 0, so no more will ever be created, unless we later decide to tell it to. And let's just move it over one more. And so now we have particles at last. Let's change the lifespan to about, see as we have a 3-second composition, let's just put it to about 5 seconds. You want it longer than your composition, seeing as you moved it over. Depending on how much you move it over, you may need to have more more lifespan added, but I should be fine with 5 seconds. Now This looks pretty good. I'm going to move my smoke particles to above my, above my text, but I want my lasers, actually, you know what, I'm seeing as I have it at a low opacity, or not complete opacity, I'm going to put it above my lasers. I'm going to hit the T, I'm going to set this to about 75. My opacity of my entire layer, I just prefer to set the opacities separately. And my goodness, talking for 40 minutes sort of starts to make you feel all weird. So I'm going to start wrapping this up, seeing as we basically have the effect right here. All we have is a little bit more color correction and as many lasers as we feel like adding. And I can then go to my rotation, Y rotation. From this point, actually I can put it from about here, move all the way to the end of the composition. Oh, my dog's digging. That's a terrible sound. And move it all, and just have it rotate somewhere else. Let's extend this size a bit because it goes out. You can get really picky with the sizes if you want, but I don't see much value in it. No one's really going to notice that much, as long as you don't have a crazy extra value added to it and you focus on it. I believe we should create a single more camera though, or another laser. So let's duplicate this, open up our options. I apologize, I just yawned. Now let's start changing these all to 5. There's got to be an easier way to change them, but I have not been made aware of it. I am not exactly a expression guru, so. But I know enough to basically get by. I really should spend a lot more time with expressions, and I think I probably will start. But at the time of me making this video, I do not have any supreme amount of experience. Now let's go into this null. Seeing as we already moved this around, let's just reset the rotation on it and start moving its position. Actually, let's zoom out. Let's just go to the first frame. It's faster to load. And I guess we could also go down to a much lower quality setting to load this faster. I guess I did forget to change that eventually because I do not have GPU rendering, which would make things significantly faster. Don't worry, I'm working on it. Maybe. I don't know. Not exactly number 1 on my list of things to get. But we will hopefully get there eventually. And yeah, let's just put a laser. Seeing as I don't have it set to my orientation, I have to do it this way. Let's go -90, let's have it face this way. Put our camera down here again. And let's just move this down so it's next to our text. And now we can have all kinds of fun with our camera. We could add a depth of field if you want to go nuts, but it's a bit camera heavy, or it's a bit render heavy, so I'm not going to bother with that. I'm going to go to the position and point of interest and position. Back this up. Start moving this around. Also, another thing to note is if you start having issues with your lasers not moving for some reason when you move the camera, but everything else moves. If you change the like they are, it's just not registering. I had this issue a little bit. Turns out if you just change your quality and start moving around, they should start working again. And if you render the final thing out, it'll show up. As we can see this happening here. So yeah, they're not following, but when I change the quality, it does show that they have moved, so I can just feel free to start working around like this. Let's go back to quarter. So this is basically the animation that I have, and this one never even gets noticed, so let's bring this down. And if you want a certain one to be above another, make sure you actually put it above in layer scenes. They are all on their own separate 3D space. And actually, I think I'd like to take this null, go to the rotation, and just swap these around because I'd like it to be moving the other way. So now we go over, and it's pretty darn cool. One thing I also like to do when I'm working in a three-dimensional scene, and I already have my camera set up, I like to go into Layer, New Camera, and basically just make this my test camera. As you saw in the first composition, like my test file, I have this camera, but if I shut this off, I go back to my main camera, so I never have to worry about any crap happening to it. I don't have to worry about going back to where I was or anything. So yeah, text camera, great idea to work with. For example, right now, I want to be going up here, and I want to be doing something with the smoke particles. Seeing as I'd like it to preferably be a bit away from, have the smoke a bit away from this text, I'm going to be having the smoke move away from, just move out of the area. A really cool thing you could also do, I showed in my previous tutorial, and you can also, you could probably find something about it online. Just Google searching it or YouTube searching it. You could put the particular smoke and collaborate it with this text here, which I think would be really cool. Smoke's working with the text using the Z depth pass layer. Z depth, Z depth. I don't know, Z depth sounds better. It's up to you, whatever. I'm Canadian, so I'm bound by honor to say Z. So our smoke particles, let's go to. So how we're going to do this, we're going to go to our physics system. Just keep saving, just because I'm paranoid of things not working all of a sudden. Motion let's go to our spherical field. Start moving this back. I believe it should be back about 1500. So it's right against this wall here. It should also be up around, I don't know, seeing as it's just off of the ground, it should be like plus 750-ish, I don't know. It's difficult because these things don't move in 3D space with it, so position Z, radius, we can, let's bump up the radius quite large, not that large. and also bump up the strength of this spherical field, and we will start seeing the smoke moving away as we increase the size and strength of this field. I'd like to keep it at about 80. You don't want to have something too powerful, but you want it to be enough stuff to remain away from your text. So if we go back to our main camera, we're able to go past the text, or we're able to go past the smoke somewhat. Let's increase the radius then. I don't want to get rid of them altogether, but you get the idea. Okay, sorry for that. I had to pause for a second, got interrupted. So, yeah, basically this is our effect. We can also color correct these smoke particles, I guess, a bit. And then color correct the entire scene. However, the lighting did a very nice job of color correcting the scene. And in fact, in the original, I did not even have to add any color correction to it. I already really like the lasers, so it'd be nice if they were a bit more white, but smoke particles. Let's add a bit of green into them. Just a little bit. And their lightness up. Let's drop their opacity a bit more. Let's drop this to like 60. Don't want to be seeing them too much. So this comes over. The lasers are jumping around badly because they're just not in sync, but they are working right. And it comes so we can see our text, and that is bad. There we go. So what would we like to do? Let's just color correct the entire scene quickly by creating a new adjustment layer. I like curves. I don't know. You can use levels or whatever you want, really. The entire thing is entirely up to you, obviously. Let's add a little bit of blue, a little bit of green. And looks pretty good to me. Another thing we could also do is go into like something like Magic Bullet looks. I don't know, I just love this effect way too much. It's the simplest way to get a really good color correction effect, in my opinion, so. Once this loads up, we can, of course we could start adding like presets and stuff, but like zombies or action. Actually, that's a terrible action filter. Don't think I'd ever use that for actual action, but so let's just start from the basics. Don't really want to be doing too much craziness. Some contrast. Actually, I don't like that contrast. I don't know. I hate the color contrast. I hate the color contrast effect because I'm always thinking it's the regular contrast. I want actual contrast. There we go. Don't care about the pivot. Let's go to Colorista. Would be nice. I'm a huge fan of the Colorista. Change our highlights up a bit. Our shadows to a dark green would be very effective for our scene. Don't forget our light blue laser. Oh no. Lasers are just turning a little too green, though. That looks pretty good, actually. Oh, it's way too... There. Get rid of that. Stupid things. I don't know, I really hate that I can't get the blue lights, but you can mess around with those all you want. So either way, this has been Taz Olson. Yeah, this has been Taz Olson. I am done with this tutorial now. Keep an eye out for the next ones. I got some interesting ones coming up. I got one that deals with projection coming up soon, which it's going to be very interesting. It's going to add some new concepts that I haven't seen worked with before, so keep a lookout for that. Until next time, my name is Taz Olson, signing off. Goodbye.